Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin and my friend,
Corsair.
and we are on episode, I think we're at episode 12 now, and we've kind of changed the name a little bit. Instead of this week in travel, we're calling it What's Happening in Travel. And the reason for this is there's a lot of things happening in travel, and the things can happen this week, or they could have happened in the past, or things that we know are going to happen in the future. And I think this name is probably a little better for what we're trying to do. So we're rebranding, and we're calling it What's Happening in Travel, which is WIT for short. And so we're exercising our travel wit. Okay, that's enough jokes for now. But so
And the topics we choose are purely subjective.
Exactly.
And what we see in airline-related news.
Yep. So they're taken from the headlines or from the news or whatever is going on out there is what we're choosing. However, though, if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, please feel free to send us some feedback. You can go feedback@passradar.com, or you can go to passradar.com/ttw, which I'm now going to have to change to passradar.com/WHIT since it's now What's Happening in Travel. It also helps me because every week I mess up the names. I mean, it's so terrible. But anyway, let's get started with the episode 12, but actually the first episode with the new name, What's Happening in Travel with Corsair and Kerwin. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is China is getting another airline. What's going on with that, Corsair?
I don't think I know another country which has more airlines currently than China.
India?
No, not even close. Not even close. But believe it or not, there appears to be room for yet another airline. And this one, again, is a sort of an incestuous relationship, I think.
Yeah.
In that carriers belonging to different alliances often have partnerships. And this is another example. Because the new one is to be called Sanya International Airlines.
How do you spell that?
SANYA.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but the only reason I heard of Sanya is because they used to advertise on the BBC World News channel. And it's on the southern tip of the island of Hainan, which is southeast of China, very close to the Vietnam border, and actually sort of east of Hanoi in Vietnam. And it's sort of considered the south of France of China, the Riviera of China. Sanya is. And again, a very sort of un-Chinese name of Phoenix International Airport is where this carrier will be based. And so it's mainly leisure travel that we are catering to. And it's part of China Eastern, which is based in Guangzhou. But the problem is that not the problem, but the odd part is that they are collaborating with Juneyao Airlines, which I think one of them has, besides the point, has one of the best liveries in China. So I like that special color of purple that they use. But anyway, so remember that there's also this airline called Hainan Airlines, which is part of the HNA group, which includes Hong Kong Airlines and a whole bunch of other smaller Chinese carriers. For instance, there's Lucky Air, there's Tianjin Air, and Hong Kong Airlines, of course. And there's Suparna. So that's all part of the group. So this is now going to be in direct competition with them.
Well, good. Maybe they need that.
Right. And Hainan is currently based in Haikou, which is the capital of Hainan Island, which is in the north. So the Sanya International is going to be based in the south.
Oh, okay.
So Hainan is a fairly small province.
Yeah.
And to have two airlines, relatively large, I would say, based on the same island, should be interesting to see if they can sustain
Yeah.
uh, development and revenue and profits.
Now,
Not too many details. Sorry, not too. Just a second.
yeah.
Not too many details have been released about fleet types or when they're going to start. But China Eastern has just announced that uh, they are going to do this. Now, remember, China Eastern has deep pockets because they're the second largest carrier in China after China Southern.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sure they will make a go of it. But it'll be interesting to see the competition and whether they intend to go international or cater mainly to domestic travel.
Gotcha. Well, my guess with that is that Hainan Airlines, I think it was reported that they're having some issues because I know they used to fly to Europe and they flew to.
They do still.
They still
come
doing.
to Los Angeles.
Yeah, they come to Los Angeles.
Chicago.
Yeah, and I know they were doing there was like a Dublin to Hainan flight. I think they were flying on they have 787s.
Yeah.
So I know there was talk of them having issues. So maybe they're still having issues, and I assume that they're still flying now. But
yes, they are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, they are.
So yeah.
In fact, they're one of the 4 carriers that are allowed to fly currently between at least the U.S. and China.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, we had discussed this pseudo fight that was going on between the two governments about access to each other's cities during this pandemic.
Yeah.
So yes, they are still flying, and yes, they are in trouble. But this is an unusual time to announce a new airline when traffic is so depressed. But according to reports I've been reading, China air traffic, at least domestically, has pretty much rebounded to perhaps not pre-COVID levels, but an amount that's relatively close to that.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on these guys and see
as
what's
more
going
details
on.
become available.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So
no livery or anything decided yet.
And if you guys have anything to add, please drop us a note. You can just feedback at passradar.com and or leave a comment on this comment below on this particular episode and let us know. So the other thing is that in terms of airlines is JetBlue is doing some aggressive expansion. What have you seen?
This I thought was again one of those master strokes because just when you thought competition couldn't get more brutal, along comes JetBlue, very opportunistic, I think, but a good time, if you will, to invade, if you will, other airline hubs. Because a lot of carriers really haven't returned to pre-COVID levels of service, if you will, in terms of frequency.
Yeah.
So a lot of carriers have these excess aircraft that are parked. And JetBlue, I think, has done something pretty smart in that they've moved into these predominantly leisure markets where there is more travel than business markets.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first ones they've targeted is Newark Airport, Los Angeles, and to San Francisco. Now, of course, this is United Airlines mega hub, fortress hub, if you will. And they're going to go into New York for the first time with Mint, which is their first class product on the 321, the Neo.
Right.
Which is a much newer aircraft. The levels of service on JetBlue are subjectively better than what you could get domestically on United.
Yeah.
This is according to several opinions. And they have neat touches like lie flat beds with individual cubicles for their first class or Mint section.
Right.
And then they have cappuccino makers and all that. And apparently that makes a difference.
Yeah.
So they're going to start once a day. And then by October, I believe, they're going to go up to 3 times a day.
Okay.
Now, the transcons are sort of a prestige route for US carriers, and they're also highly profitable, depending on either the entertainment industry or the tech industry. So it'll be interesting to see how United will respond, because typically when one carrier invades another one's hub, the other one, the existing carrier, tries to drive the other one out, if I can say that.
It's happened
with
all the time.
Additional frequency.
Happens all the time.
But given that United and actually everyone is sort of a little cash strapped right now,
We'll see what they do. Yeah.
I'm not sure how they're going to respond, but well, now they have JetBlue to deal with as well.
Yeah. But in terms of competition, though, and that, I'm sorry, in terms of competition on that same market, United have the PS service, so they do have live flight seats as well.
Correct, but remember it's on a 757.
Yeah, but that's
compared to a brand new 321, which is arguably more spacious. And I agree, most people don't have a clue as to which airline less.
It's price.
Aircraft they're traveling on. It's all price driven.
It's all price. As airline geeks, we would go fly the Neo because we want to fly a Neo. But the other person would be like, oh, it's $5 cheaper, I'm going. Or if they like the brand, they'll take the brand. But right now, I mean, I think we looked at this last week. There were about 8 or 9 flights between New York and New York City and the West Coast. I think it was LA we were looking at. And JetBlue did have a few, but I don't think those are in this. When are they supposed to start? Did they say?
Let's say August.
Oh, okay.
Which is actually not that far away. But the really interesting thing is that they didn't just target United. They went after Delta.
Yeah, because Delta
at JFK, going into Detroit, Minneapolis, and Atlanta, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
No, it was just Detroit and Minneapolis.
Yeah. Then
they went after American as well into Charlotte.
Yeah.
From JFK. So they also started Philadelphia service, which again is a big American Airlines hub, and also out of Florida, which Orlando and Fort Lauderdale to Seattle, which is Alaska. So they targeted a whole range of existing American carriers that are really quite large, much larger than JetBlue, and went after them at a time when they were down.
Yeah, well, it's war, right? And I guess the best time to fight your enemies is when they're not strong.
Yeah.
So there's a history of this in the airline industry. This is not the first time, and it certainly will not be the last that this is happening. And this is certainly not the last time that this is. I was getting a call there. This is certainly not the last time you're seeing this kind of thing happens. I remember years ago, Legend Airlines started flying out of Dallas to, I think it was to LA. And they had these Fokker 50s that they had, was it 50s? Or 100s, I think it was. And they had categorized them to like 50 seats or something like that. But they were all business class. And
do you remember Independence Air?
Exactly.
United was not happy when they started flying to Dallas.
And so the airline schedulers are a bunch of guys, and as guys we have a lot of egos, and so they're always quote unquote ticking off other airline people by launching flights into their markets, and it's always interesting to see how they retaliate. And usually what the airlines do when you're retaliating is because you only have one flight, they will put like flights every half an hour or something like that. Now United already used to have flights every hour pretty much from Newark to San Francisco and Los Angeles. And so, but now they don't. There's nothing out there every hour because there's no traffic for it every hour. So, but they're hoping that by August, the traffic will increase. So we're definitely going to be following this story to see what happens with that.
And JetBlue gets to keep its aircraft in service because keeping them parked is also a pretty intensive
Right.
job
Exactly.
in
But
terms
then
of
are they going to have the
rotation.
traffic, right?
Yeah, but
That's
the leisure traffic is returning though. And I
yeah,
think they're banking on that to continue.
true, hopefully. And I guess, that brings us to the other point where, the requirements that airlines are having now because the pressure is on them to protect passengers is,
That's right.
a lot of them have a mask issue that says you're supposed to wear a mask when you get on the planes. Well, some people aren't complying. And we just had the story of this guy on American, and maybe you can tell the story better than I can for sure. Yeah, about the guy in American who got kicked off because he wasn't wearing the mask.
He was boarding at LaGuardia, I believe,
Yeah,
going to Seattle. Um, and he was um, banned, at least temporarily, from American. And I think it was on before takeoff that he was asked to leave the aircraft, and he did so after a lot of protesting and I'm sure delay.
of course.
Um, in a way, it's good American took a stand because
Yeah,
most carriers are so afraid of offending any passenger.
they really are.
So I think it is good that
Yeah,
American took a stand because it's really in the protection of all the other people on board that they are requiring masks of their passengers. And
exactly.
I believe United has done the same thing. They
Yes, they
haven't
have.
banned anyone yet, to my knowledge,
Yeah,
but they're starting to require people to wear masks on
yeah,
board.
and I think they should. I mean, and people are so just like how when you had the you can bring your pet on board, and if they're comfort animals, you don't have to pay for it. People are now saying, "Oh, it's a medical reason why I don't wear a mask." That's a negative. So I think people are going to try to come up with all kinds of reasons why they can't do things, and it's like just remember that an airline is a private entity, and they can deny you boarding. And so, if the policy of the airline is for you to wear a mask or put shoes on, or you know whatever it is, then you need to comply because when you bought that ticket, you agreed to that. If you don't want to comply, you don't fly the airline. You fly another airline. And people,
Yeah,
it is not your right. So don't go saying, well, this is my right. No, you don't have any rights. It's a private company. Same way how when you go to a grocery store and someone says you can't come in unless you wear a mask, that's the company's policy. So if you can't abide by that, I mean, I think
go somewhere else.
you have to, and it's tough to say that, but we're trying to save people's lives here. You don't know if you have it. You don't know if the person next to you have it. And so, we're trying to reduce the transmission because we're still learning how this works. And in order for us to continue life as somewhat normal, then these are the things that we have to have in place. And you don't have to wear a mask like, forever. We're just asking you to wear it when you're around other people. I mean, how difficult is that?
And it's purely to protect other people.
It is. It is. It
So,
absolutely is. Um,
so
but so speaking of mask, we can probably talk about some airport stuff because I read where is it Montreal
Montreal.
Airport? They've set up. Well, actually, speaking of masks too, the Canadian Airlines. I think April 20th was when they required that anyone flying on a Canadian airline have to wear a mask. Now, I haven't seen any stories of any issues in Canada, but so it looks like it's going okay. So this is not like a U.S. thing. It's also Ryanair had some issues with one guy who didn't want to wear a mask and they kicked him off as well.
Hmm.
So yes, the airlines are going to kick you off if you don't follow their rules, just like how they would anyway. If they told you to put your seatbelt on, or if you had your phone on when they're given when before takeoff or stuff like that. So this is no different than any other rule that they have on a particular airline, and I'm hoping that people will just get that. If we're talking about Montreal Trudeau Airport, I'm just looking through the story here. Basically, you have to wear a face mask. It's mandatory for everyone. As soon as you enter the airport, you have to. If the kids are under 2, and people who have breathing difficulties or disabilities or who are unable to remove the mask without the assistance of a third party will be exempt from the obligation.
How do you prove, just out of curiosity, how do you prove that you cannot wear a mask?
Well, I think they're
That's
gonna.
how that works.
But you know what it is? I think what it is here is they're saying, look, these are the exemption, and you're right. People are just gonna go, well, I'm disabled. I have breathing difficulties or something like that, right? And even if you say you need to prove it, then people are going to have to say, well, yeah, I can get my doctor to write a note that says I don't have to wear a mask because I have breathing difficulties, because people have done that for their animals. And it goes back to people just being really selfish, that you're so selfish that you're going to get a doctor to write a note that says something that's not true just so you can have your own way. And I just don't get that. The other thing too is that they're only opening 2 entrances, I guess door 4 and door 11.
It's actually a very good idea to control.
You can control the people.
Yeah, that's a very good idea.
If you aren't traveling or you aren't assisting, yes, and if you aren't assisting somebody traveling, you're out. You can't come in the airport.
Yeah.
And what's the other thing? They're gonna clean the areas where passengers are using 10 times a day. They're gonna have disinfectant gel all over the terminal, and they're gonna washroom sink, soap dispensers, and hand dryers are automated, which have always been annoying. And baggage carts will be disinfected and cleaned after every use, which you should have been doing that anyway.
I think this COVID has accelerated the development of some amazing technology.
Yes.
At least the one I'm familiar with is what United has done, the touchless check-in, which is really quite amazing, where you no longer have to touch the kiosk, I believe.
So what have they done there? Because I saw that, and we have another airport that has something similar. But what have you seen what they've done? Because I was trying to look for some information, but I couldn't really find anything.
I have not. I'm really curious to see how it works.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to take a flight right now.
I'm with you.
It is a shame because.
No, it's the time. Well, I mean, touchless kiosks will work because all they're using is just your phone. And they're using the technology that's already built into your phone. It's like when you go to the, we're getting some rain here. When we go to the where is it? When we go to the grocery store and you're paying, and you just put your phone next to the machine and it picks up the phone information. That is what they've put into the kiosk. But it would be interesting to see how they've done it, because when we look at the one from the Bangalore airport, it shows a guy, he puts this phone next to the thing, and then it reads the information and it prints out his boarding pass without him not his boarding pass, his baggage tag, without him actually touching it.
I think that's what United has done. I believe so.
Okay.
For the check-in, yeah.
I haven't seen.
And then even for security, at least in the US, the TSA security has now touchless as well. I'm not exactly sure how that works, because normally they scan your ID for a mark, an ID mark, and things like that.
So when I wrote my thing about reasons I'm not ready to fly it, and everyone's like, "Oh, we got to fly," one of the things was that, well, I don't want you touching my ID. I don't want you touching anything for me. So when they showed the Bangalore one, they showed the guy, they're behind a plexiglass, and he puts his ID up to the plexiglass, and the guy looks at it. So there's no contact between that person and the TSA person or the security person.
Yeah.
So that's good. I don't know what they're gonna have here. We need to take a trip up to IAH and see what.
But then what happens to bags there? But again, unless you have something that shows up as suspicious in an X-ray,
Well, my thing is,
Really, there's no other anyone else touching the bags
yeah.
apart from yourself.
Well, if they want to touch my bag, I want them to put a new gloves on, because I don't know where that glove came from. They might have ruffled through somebody else's bag and picked up some crap from that bag, which is something they should have been doing anyway.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm worried about the waste that's being created.
I'd rather create the
Where are we
waste.
going to dispose of this waste?
I would rather create the waste than the other result.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, and so what it's doing, right? It's making us be more innovative. So now we have to think, how can I create some gloves that will protect me, but also can be disposed of properly?
Yep. I'm sure someone will come up with something.
Yeah, most definitely. So, so that's kind of what's going on in the airport. In reference to mass, since we're on the mass subject, in terms of trains, Via Rail in Canada, and I don't know if Amtrak is doing it yet in the US, but Via Rail in Canada is requiring masks whenever you board the trains. And if you're not familiar with Via Rail is it's like the Amtrak of Canada, and they run across Canada. They actually have a shuttle service between Montreal and Toronto. Really nice service if you ever get a chance to do that. And they also have, you can buy a ticket on Amtrak from New York to Toronto. When you get to the border in Buffalo, you get off, you clear immigration and customs and security and all that, and then you go around the other side and you pick up your waiting Via Rail train that's on the other side. Now, the service level between these two trains, night and day. And then you take Via Rail from there to the rest of the way up to Toronto. So if you have to go on a train, you got to wear a mask. And I also heard that Uber in the UK, I don't know about the US, is requiring that their drivers and the passengers wear masks.
Yes, it is in the US as well.
It is in the US as well.
I think it's all over the world, actually,
yeah.
where Uber operates.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know if bus services like Flixbus or Greyhound or the blue one in the US?
Yeah.
Big bus, no.
So I saw something.
They're requiring masks as well.
What's the name of the Megabus? Megabus sent me a thing.
Megabus.
And what they're doing, they're actually leaving the seat next to you is not taken. But I don't know if they're requiring masks or not. I'm pretty sure they will eventually because everybody else is. Sorry, it's raining here, so I'm making sure that stuff isn't getting wet that needs to be moved out of the rain. Hold on one second, I'm gonna pause it, hold on. All right, so we got, it's raining pretty crazy here, so just making sure everything was good, so I went to check that. But, so the buses, the planes, just realize that you probably have to wear a mask whenever you travel, okay? So the other thing is, we want to talk about airplanes. So, Tricia, you mentioned that the Airbus is also turning the A321 into freighters as well?
Yes, and for a customer, at least I would never have thought of, it's Australia Post.
Australia Post, okay.
Yeah, mail service in Australia.
Yeah.
So another thing I should have realized, but really didn't, is that the Airbus products are the narrow bodies that can accommodate pallets under belly, and that makes them a particularly attractive fleet type for carriers that ship by pallets.
Yeah.
And the A321 apparently fits that very, very well, because the 737 does not accept pallets, either above or below deck.
Yeah.
So Australia Post has acquired these used 321s, and they're converting them to freighters with a side cabin door. This is forward of the wing.
Right.
And they've actually done some fairly extensive engineering of the aircraft. In fact, they've moved the L1 door, which is typically the door used to board an aircraft from the front. They've moved that towards the cockpit. So they've had to make a few changes, I guess, to accommodate a certain number of pallets above
Right.
deck. So it'll be interesting to see who else buys this product. But as far as I know, Australia Post is the only current customer, and they're doing this at Airbus facilities in Europe.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Well, good. It'll be interesting to see how these go. And since we've realized that freighter is a big thing now, it makes sense, right? Or more freighters anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then more 747 retirements, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I think
Corsair.
it's Corsair.
Yeah, because I didn't realize that they operated every fleet type, every aircraft type of the 747 up to the 400
Oh wow, okay.
in their years of existence.
Yeah.
Yes. From the 100 to the 400, including the SP. And just this week actually, they retired the last 744 to a facility in England. And I also find this very interesting that the British seem to retire their planes in Spain, in Teruel, for example, like what Virgin Atlantic has done.
Yeah.
But yet the French seem to store or retire their planes in the UK. So I'm curious to know how that works. Why or how these storage airports get their customers, but that's beside the point right now. But yes, Corsair retired its last 747 and now is an all Airbus fleet with 330s.
Oh wow, okay. And I see you mentioned that Iberia was retiring their 340s.
Yes, Iberia, the 346. And slowly but surely, that fleet type is also being retired.
Going, yeah.
But
have you flown the 346 yet? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
They're actually going down to 0. They have about 15, 6 of them in service and 8 or 9 in storage.
Okay.
And they're going down to 10 by the end of this year, and then completely out of the fleet by 2022. And this is Iberia's main long haul.
The long haul baby, right? Yeah.
The 359s are going to take over. But still, it's a shame to see them go, but it's just not economical anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I think Lufthansa now becomes, I think it's always been rather the largest 346 current operator. Though airlines in Iran are finding it an attractive plane.
Yeah.
Because Mahan and also I believe Iran Air are to take delivery of some 346s.
Gotcha.
So,
and so in talking about Airbus and the 346s, are we done making 380s now?
Yes, that's another sad, well, relatively speaking, subjectively speaking. The last 380 fuselage left Saint-Nazaire, which is western port, sort of northwest of France, and headed southeast to Toulouse. And that's such an elaborate procedure to take these giant fuselage sections of the plane through these narrow French villages, the narrow streets of these French villages.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to do that, but it's too late now.
So they still do that? I thought
272.
So they still do that? I mean, move the tubs to that town? I thought they had stopped that. I thought it was just like initially.
Actually, there was a YouTube video of it.
Yeah, I know. I've seen the video, and it's awesome. I mean, I think Airbus even produced the thing about it too.
Yes, and there were crowds of people watching.
Yeah.
And this is the fuselage for Emirates, which is to take the last aircraft.
Hold on one sec. Hold on. Okay, so continue talking about the A380.
So yes, this was fuselage number 272. The last one. And also, curiously, this is almost exactly the number of L1011 TriStars that were made in
Oh
the
wow,
US from Lockheed.
wow,
I think if Lockheed had 273
yeah,
TriStars, or it's 271, I forget.
gotcha.
But so yes, this is going to be delivered in 2021 to Emirates.
Wow,
The last 3A.
pretty funky, huh? So, have you, speaking of L1011s, have you ever flown the L10
Yes.
and the TriStar?
The you mean the L1011
Yeah.
TriStar? Yes. Yeah. I
It's
always
a,
thought it was a very graceful aircraft.
yes, it is very good. Caribbean Air, well, it was BWA at the time. They used to fly them to
Yep.
London from the Caribbean, and
Yeah.
they used to fly Trinidad.
BWIA International, right?
Yeah, BWI. So they used to fly Trinidad to Barbados and then Barbados to London. And the Trinidad Barbados flight is like 45 minutes. That's the block time. The flight time is probably 20 minutes on an L10. So that's the kind of stuff that that's probably the shortest run that an L10 ever flew. So did you have anything else?
No, not right. Well, there's a lot of other topics about
I know
different airlines entering bankruptcy and all that.
Cool.
But
well, we're gonna save that for another episode. But for now, thank you guys so much for joining. And we had a few interruptions in here because of the weather and all that kind of stuff. But at least you get an idea of what it takes for us to put an episode together. So, and we're calling it What's Happening in Travel is the New Name. And see, it's so much easier for me to remember that. Oh, WIT for short. And this is Kerwin and
good show.
Signing off for episode number 12 and the first episode with the new name, What's Happening in Travel. See you next time.